Hello again, fellow podcaster, and welcome back to Pod Theory. I am your host, Jason Cercone, and today is the season premiere of Pod Theory Season 2. On this episode, I am joined by none other than Travis Brown. He is the featured co-host of Season 2. So all 11 episodes of this season, you're going to hear me and Travis going back and forth about some of the myths and some of the misconceptions that are surrounding the world of podcasting. Today's episode is all about a fairly common misconception that you may have either thought before or you've probably heard somebody say, and it's that podcasting is going to make you rich overnight. So this season is all about getting straight to the value. Let's jump into episode 126 of Pod Theory, kicking off season 2, talking about the myth that podcasting is going to make you rich overnight. Here we go. Travis, what's up, my friend?
Did you know that podcasting will make you rich overnight, Jason?
I think that's bullshit.
Do you want to get rich quick scheme?
I'd love to hear one.
All you have to do is buy a bunch of calling cards from me and then sell them to your friends and family and then get them to sell them to their friends and family. And this Porsche 911 can be yours.
I've already gotten rich off of that. Can I do it twice?
Absolutely. You can do it as many times as you want, but you can't do that in podcasting.
No. Yeah. If you want to sell calling cards, who sells calling cards?
Bad reference, but
no, that was a good Office reference though. So welcome to the premiere episode of season 2 of Pod Theory. I am Jason Cercone. That is Travis Brown. And we are talking all about myths and misconceptions around podcasting here in season 2. And we're going to kick things off with one of the biggest misconceptions that people have. And that's the fact that they think that once they start a podcast, they're going to get rich overnight and money is just going to flow in. Now, not to throw a spoiler out there to kick things off, but no, it won't. Podcasting will not make you rich overnight. Travis, where do you think this belief came from?
I think the belief comes from the fact that because you can use things in your home like a USB microphone and you can reach the entire globe, that you're smart enough and funny enough and you can just plug in the microphone and talk, it'll get to the right people, and then that big corporate sponsor truck will pull up and dump all the money in your driveway, and it'll just be easy to get rich through podcasting because we see other people that make it look easy. We see, the Joe Rogans of the world and all these people who are having this what looks like overnight success, quick success. But when you peek behind the curtain, there's years and years and years of building. And don't get me wrong, there's ways to make money right away. But I think everyone's looking for this 6-figure, 7-figure overnight success, or even a viral video. I see a lot of people that are like trying to make viral content, but they don't have anything to back it up. Right. So if you go viral, you're going to waste your shot. You're going to get one viral video. And then if you don't have anything behind it, they're just going to go on to the next person who has a viral video. So what I'd like to propose is thinking about, instead of podcasting making you rich overnight, how about podcasting as a platform to reach people and to build something that has longevity, that has depth to it, that is going to last a long time? Because we all know the, catch me outside, how about that girl, and the cranberry juice skateboard guy, they may still be doing something, but we didn't even mention their names. There's a bigger philosophical question, which is like, is it money that you're looking for, or is it freedom that you're looking for? Is podcasting going to give you freedom, or is it just the dollars in the bank account? Because there's lots of ways to make money, but do you really want to build something that's worthy, or do you want to be the catch me outside girl, where you're just a meme for the rest of your life? And if you do some other stuff too to make money, that's great. But when you really boil it down on your tombstone, is it going to say, catch me outside, how about that? Or is it going to say something like, this person changed the world with their voice?
To me, I think we have to redefine the word rich. And I think that's the path that you're taking, because when you think of podcasting, ultimately the goal is to create something of value that the world can consume, one listener at a time. And as you continue to grow your audience with the value that you provide, of course, it's exposing it to more people, and then opportunities can come from that. That does not happen overnight. But in that framework are opportunities that you can feel rich, you can feel successful. If you're setting an expectation for yourself that success means that I created a podcast that 3 people consumed today, but all 3 of them walked away with something new that they can apply to their business or they can apply to their life, or that they were entertained by what I have to say, just depending on the genre of your podcast. I think if we look at it that way, we stand to A, get better results, but B, stay with this for a much longer period of time. Like you were saying a second ago, Travis, the longevity is really what's lacking in podcasting because of all of these myths and misconceptions. People hear this stuff and think, well, that didn't happen to me. I must be doing something wrong. I'm going to quit. And then they just walk away from it, and they never truly tapped into what could have been an awesome podcast that if they would have just stuck to it and kept adding to the catalog and putting more value out there, more people could have found it. So I think, to me, when we think of the fact that we want podcasting to make us rich overnight, and then every other myth and misconception that we're going to cover in this season, I think if we redefine the expectations we have when we start our podcast, we're going to be in a much better place.
I agree. So if we redefine the word rich, most people think of it as the cars and the disposable income and the vacations and all this in that, which is great, which if you make it that far, that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that. But rich really comes down to, can you pay your bills? Can you live comfortably? Do you have the ability to take free time to do other things that you love? In my opinion, in my humble opinion, being rich is being able to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. So I think if anyone's listening out there and you're thinking, I want to be rich, like remember that song, I want to be rich, right? It's in our American blood to be like, I want to, go find the gold and be rich, right? But can you ask yourself, what would it look like for me to just be untethered from something? That would be rich, in my opinion. That would be the ability to do podcasting for a living and, drive a regular car and have a regular house and have regular food on your table. You don't have to have it delivered by a butler. And I'm going to use a lot of music references. Mo money, more problems, right? So
Indeed.
I do think podcasting can make you rich in some certain ways. The ability to reach everyone and to build a brand, the ability to networking is an incredible feature that's built into podcast and podcast interviews, and the ability to do it efficiently and affordably. You don't need to have a radio station. You don't need to have gobs of expensive outboard equipment. You can get a $50 USB mic and do all the things that we mentioned and make an impact and feel rich at the end of the day.
I think it comes down to, and I'm not going to get onto a big soapbox about this because you can go back in season 1 of Pod Theory and hear me talk about this plenty of times. It is all about that initial plan that you build coming into your podcast. And within that plan, you have to outline what you expect to get from your show. And the number one question that you ask yourself is, why am I starting a podcast? Because if it is, well, to get rich, I'm going to tell you now, just throw the rest of the plan away and move on to something else. Because, let me backtrack slightly. This can happen over time monetarily, but you have to be ready to put in the reps. You have to be willing to put in that time and effort and really expand your bandwidth to get to a point to where you are creating legitimate income, because there's so many factors that come into play that you have to be keeping front of mind, that if you come into it just saying, well, I'm going to start a podcast because it's going to make me rich. No, I'm afraid I've got some bad news for you. It's just never going to work, and it's just going to lead to constant frustration. And then you're going to have this horrible taste in your mouth, and you're going to tell all these other people, screw podcasting, that was no good. That's just a terrible platform to be a part of, because all these people say, oh yeah, you're going to make all this money, and I didn't, so clearly that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, going into it with that mindset is bullshit. You have to plan out everything that you want to achieve and the mission you want your podcast to serve, but above all else, you have to set your own realistic expectations and realize that you're going to be in this for the long haul. And that's a good thing, because it's consistent content coming from your platform that's touching people on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, whatever time frame you're releasing your podcast in. The more that you do that, the more that you build your reputation, the more you establish your authority, the more you reach those ideal listeners that will then recommend you to other listeners. It's a great platform to be a part of, and its reach is global. So you start thinking about podcasting in that respect versus I need to have $1 million hit my bank account because I started a podcast and I have 3 episodes out there. You're just going to feel so much better. And that frustration won't even be on your radar because you're looking at it the right way.
Yeah, you hit on a word, expectations. And I think expectations are what kill most dreams for people, and as well as expectations comparison. So if you think it's as easy as setting up your mic, talking to your friends and smoking weed, and then Spotify is going to give you $110 million, yes, that is something that has happened, but it doesn't happen to 99.9% of podcasters. So if you don't compare yourself to other people and you set realistic expectations and goals and keep working towards them, you can build something that can make you rich in multiple ways. We're talking about more than a bank account right now. And you can use this platform. And, you also mentioned weekly and biweekly, but something that we didn't mention is that as you're creating this content, you're building a library. And some of the best things I've ever found in my entire life were things I knew about years ago, but I wasn't necessarily ready for mentally. And so then I found them later in life, and I have this beautiful, just huge library of content that I get to go through. And so as you're building out these episodes, yes, this week might not have been a good week, but the right person might not have found you this week. They may find you in 6 months. And if that episode's there, it might be just what they need to hear. So if you can reframe thinking about podcasting as having an expiration date of a week, and instead of that, thinking of it as a lifetime of content that you created that you can use in multiple different ways, we're talking about a legacy here, which is, in my opinion, just going back to being rich, you don't see any U-Hauls behind hearses, do you? You don't see a Brinks truck behind a hearse. Mm-hmm. You don't take it with you, but your legacy you leave behind, and people remember you for a long time. So when you're thinking about being rich, yes, money can solve a lot of problems and make you very happy, but money can also cause a lot of problems. And so when you're sitting down thinking about starting this podcast, aside of the money, what are the things you want to achieve? And those are your rich goals. Those are the goals that make you more defined than money, because money is just an idea. It's a piece of paper. We all agree that's worth something, and they can print as much as they want. So you can always get some more money, but you can't redo your life and build a legacy. You've got to put in the work, and you've got to have a mission, and you've got to have some goals that you can achieve. And you also have to be in the mindset that this is a marathon, that it will take some time to grow. And if you could put in that time, you don't plant a seed and sprout a giant oak tree the next day. You water it, you wait, it grows, it gets resistance from the wind, it put branches out, and at some point becomes this beautiful giant tree in your backyard.
I love the point you made about finding things later in life, because you think about, for example, me being born in 1979, it was probably into the later 80s, early 90s. I don't remember the exact time frame that I discovered the Beatles. That was a creation of the 60s, along with all the other great music from that era. And if that hadn't been built in a way that it was meant to carry on forever, we would have never discovered it. And now there are times where I'm listening to that music and my daughter will ask, what's this? Because she's liking what she hears. So all of these things they've stemmed from one generation to the next. If you look at your podcast in that same respect, that this is something that I'm creating that 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, somebody could be finding some value from it. That is huge. To me, that's much more valuable than having money poured into your account for nothing, because that's short-lived. If it's something that it's not attached to value, it's going to expire and you're going to find yourself in a similar situation or worse, because you're not actually building a foundation on which you can generate additional revenue for yourself in a positive way. And then once that revenue is generated, of course, you have to learn to manage it properly. And that's a conversation for another day that we don't need to try to tackle. But the point is, Travis, you nailed it perfectly. Building that legacy is what it's all about. And I think if we start getting into this, I'll coin a phrase here, legacy podcast mindset, I think that's going to put everybody in just a much clearer long-term vision for their goals and for their aspirations when they set out to attack this content medium.
Yeah. And there's a quote, I don't know who said it, and so we'll have to fact check this. Whoever said this quote was, if you want to live forever, marry a writer. And the idea here is that a writer will write about you in their prose, and that book will hopefully live on forever. So you mentioned the Beatles. Think about somebody who's going to live forever. Paul McCartney. No matter when he dies, no matter when John Lennon died, George Harrison, Ringo dies, they will live forever through the music that they created. And you can live forever too by putting out amazing content that in 100 years somebody digs up and listens to, and you'll be there. You'll be alive. Your voice will be alive in a time capsule that you created. And that, in my opinion, is better than any dollar you could put in any bank account. You want to live forever? Become a podcaster.
I will say, to put a bow on this, there's really not many more points that we can go after in regards to covering this, just letting you know that as you launch your podcast or as you build your podcast, no matter where you are on the content creation timeline with this platform, just understand that being in a position to create great content that's valuable for society, that's valuable for your ideal listeners, that's what's going to eventually lead to the great gains. And those great gains may not always be monetary. So keep that in mind, is if you're in a position where you're impacting one person a day with the content that you create, you're already rich. And if you start thinking of it with that mindset, you're going to be in a very, very positive place.
Myth busted.
Boom. And that's a wrap on episode 126 of Pod Theory. If you like what we're putting down as the season gets underway, please take a quick second to stop what you're doing, jump over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating, drop some feedback, leave a review. Let us know how we're doing as season 2 of Pod Theory is officially kicked off. There are 10 more episodes waiting for you to listen to. Episode 127 is all about the fact that podcasting is more than just monetization. Jump over, take a listen, enjoy. This has been Jason Cercone signing off episode 126 of Pod Theory. Good talk. End of podcast. Being a guest on podcasts that are relevant to your message and mission is the most powerful way to build your brand today. With each guest appearance you make, you build your reputation, establish trust, position yourself as a thought leader, grow your audience, and much, much more. If you'd like to enhance your brand by maximizing the power of podcasting, you need to check out GuestSpotter. GuestSpotter offers comprehensive communications and guest booking solutions, so all you need to do is show up and dominate your interview. Visit guestspotter.com today to learn more.